Hi everyone, Mark Lyman with HomeFixated.com here. I want to talk with you today about sort of the state of nail gun technology in the marketplace today, as well as the DeWalt framing nailer that came into the marketplace not too long ago. So about 4 years or so ago, I did a review on the Pazload framing nailer. Now, if you're familiar with Pazload, they primarily use this gas fuel cell technology. At the time, I had a great experience with the framing nailer, mainly from the standpoint that I wasn't dragging around an air hose everywhere that was constantly getting hung up on things or that people were tripping on. It was kind of like using a cordless drill for the first time. You just have this newfound freedom. Next thing you know, you want to go run around and use the tool on everything under the sun, just because you're not tethered to a cord or a hose anymore. The downside to that particular technology is that it was an expendable fuel cell. So primarily professionals were using this tool, they were driving a lot of nails, and you had to continuously go out and buy these fuel cells. Great for Pazload in terms of recurring revenue, not so great for the consumer in my opinion. The other downside to it is that there was some fuel smell or fumes that you'd have to deal with, especially if you were doing like a remodel environment where you're indoors with the tool, that I wasn't a huge fan of. Not too long after that, Senko Fusion came out, and this was a line of cordless nailers, primarily finish nailers, or only finish nailers. They didn't come out with a framing nailer in that particular line. Threw some people off initially because it had this kind of big gas tank that was really conspicuous in the design. And I think it's, if I remember correctly, it stored nitrogen. Now, people looked at that and said, where in the world am I going to take this to refill, this nitrogen tank? It was a sealed tank, so it never actually expended the gas. But I think it did disconcert a few people initially, thinking that they had to refill that tank. The other thing that was working against the Senko Fusion line a little bit is that you were buying a cordless battery-operated tool in a product line that really didn't have a lot of cordless tools. You were basically buying it for that Fusion nailer. Now, in the past, there have been some of the big tool brands have come out with cordless nail guns, finished nail guns, that are battery operated. And some of those suffered from kind of these long cycle times. You'd fire off a shot, you'd have to wait for what seemed like an eternity for the tool to cycle, and then you could fire off another shot. The advantage, though, to these particular tools from the major tool brands is that you're buying into a battery platform that's going to be compatible with your whole tool arsenal, or at least whatever tools you have from that particular brand in your arsenal. I think that the DeWalt framing nailer, which I'm going to talk about right now, it's this bad boy right here, is kind of the opening salvo in what is the next generation of nail gun technology. Now, I'll start off with a little disclaimer here. I'm not a contractor, and I didn't use this in the field. I basically experimented with it around the shop here, enough so that I could give you a quick overview on it. Our actual in-depth tool review, which is done out in the field by a professional, is something you're going to find. I'll be sure to include the link in the YouTube description when it's available, or you can visit HomeFixated.com. Just do a search in the upper right for DeWalt framing nailer, and you'll be sure to find it. Phil is going to do an in-depth review with this tool out in the field. But let me talk about some of the basic functions of it and a little bit of my experience with the limited testing I did, and just give you kind of a teaser on it. One thing I did notice with this tool is the slide mechanism, or the loading mechanism, is a little bit different than what I'm used to on some other nailers. In order to load the nails, you actually have to lock it back into place where it clicks, and then you can slide your nails in, slide them forward, release the lock, and you're ready to roll. On some of the other nailers that I've used in the past, you don't actually have to lock the slide back in order to load it. You can slide the nails in and just pull it past the nails and release it, and it sets the tool so it's ready to go. Minor little quibble, it's not a big deal to lock it back either. Typical, pretty aggressive front end on the nose of the tool here. There is a no-mar tip. Typically when you're doing framing nailing, you're not too worried about marring the 2x4s, but it does come with a tool if you have a need for that. What you'd expect as far as the depth of drive here, there's a little dial that sets how deep your nails are going to go. And there's also 2 speeds on this tool. Now, if you're right-handed like I am, you might look at the tool and think, where is the speed setting on this? It's kind of hidden away down here by the battery. You can see it right here. There's a setting 1 and a setting 2. Now, the tool itself is designed to drive 2-inch to 3.5-inch nails. In terms of the speed settings, setting 1 is designed for 2 to 3 inch nails. Setting 2 is designed for 3 1/4 or 3.5 inch nails, or just more aggressive nailing applications. So in my experience, I was using primarily 3-inch nails, driving them into some scrap redwood. I had it on setting 1, and I found that it did a great job of driving the nails a little bit below flush. Now, I had it pretty much maxed out on the depth setting. So I can definitely foresee there's going to be times where you're going to want that setting 2. DeWalt does caution you not to use the setting 2 for everything, including light-duty framing nailing applications, because it tends to wear out the tool a little faster, and you're also going to get less shots out of a battery charge in that setting tool because it's basically using more juice. Aside from that, there's a safety mechanism here that locks the trigger out. There's also a sequential fire and a bump fire setting. So you can do either of those. I found the cycle times to be surprisingly fast. For the kind of work that I do with this, there's no way that the cycle times would slow me down. For someone that's just a hardcore bump fire fanatic, they might like some of their pneumatic tools a little bit more, but I think it did a great job on firing quickly when needed. Phil will probably dive into that a little bit more in his experience. There is a Rafter Hook. It has these nice kind of detents, so you can lock it in these different settings. That'll let you hang it up on a stud if you need to, or if you want to hang it on your belt clip. DeWalt does caution you, don't do that when it's in bump fire mode, unless you like to shoot nails through your leg, which most people probably don't enjoy. So that's about all I have to say about the tool right now. Oh, one more thing, ergonomics. It's got a great grip on it. The tool itself is about 9-ish pounds or so. Don't quote me on that exactly. So it's not the lightest tool on the planet, but framing nailers usually aren't the lightest tools on the planet. The grip is, if you're familiar with DeWalt's tools at all, and their cordless tools in particular, they've got great ergonomics, so the tool feels really good in your hand. It's pretty well balanced, you know, compared to, here's an old Porter Cable framing nailer I have, if you can see me behind the giant magazine hanging off there. The size of the actual tools is not too far off if you disregard that giant nail magazine on the Porter Cable. So it's really a great tool. I'm not into really doing predictions, but I'm going to have to say here that I would not at all be surprised if you start seeing more nail guns, cordless nail guns, coming out from the major tool brands, including some that haven't released any nailers in the past. I don't have any insider knowledge here, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see nail guns from brands like Milwaukee, for example. So so keep your eyes out for those, and be sure to drop by homefixated.com for more great tool reviews, cool products for around the home, some construction and how-to information, and even some woodworking projects. Look forward to seeing you there. Thanks so much.